Hello, Susanna, Amanda, Sarah Lee, Kathy, Stella, Arlene, Christine, Tricia, Stephanie, Samantha, and Melissa. Thank you for an excellent first week of conversation in our discussion forum. I appreciate you sharing your stories and your insights and all of the interaction that we had with one another. Susanna started us off with the story of her experience at Walgreens. And again, let me say, as many of us said in the forum, that experience was just completely unfair. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I wish that people in this country had just a little more respect for people who are making such a huge effort to learn a new language and be successful, especially since so many of us in the United States don't know any other language but English. But in any case, I really appreciated what you had to say, and especially the way that you ended your insights with the statement, "Don't treat people the way you do not want to be treated," which is a way of saying what's commonly called the silver rule. Do not do to others what you would not want done to you. Which is really a good place to start with ethics. If you're planning on doing something and you say, wait a minute, I would not want somebody to do that to me, that would be hurtful, that would be harmful, that would be discouraging, then you're pretty safe in not doing it because it would be harmful. So the silver rule prevents us from doing things that would be harmful. There's also the golden rule, and a couple of you mentioned the golden rule in the discussion forum. Do unto others what you would have others do unto you, which is a positive formulation, most famously said by Jesus of Nazareth. And so that helps us by saying, if there's something that we would want for ourselves, there's a good chance that other people would want that too. If we like to be treated kindly, chances are somebody else would like to be treated kindly. If we would like to have our rights respected, chances are other people would like to have their rights respected. And then in one of the videos for the course so far, we learned about the platinum rule. And the platinum rule says, do to others as they would like to be done to them. Do to others treat others the way that they would like to be treated, which is a further formulation of this rule to help us get outside our own preferences and our own assumptions and try to understand how another person might in fact prefer something that we don't. An example of this would be some experience I had living among the Inupiaq people of Northwest Alaska. I lived in a Inupiaq village for 6 years, and one of the dynamics in that culture is that it's disrespectful to directly approach someone if there's a disagreement. In that culture, the respectful thing to do is to go to somebody else that you both know, say, this happened between me and so-and-so, and I want to try to work it out. Could you go and talk to so-and-so and see if there's a way that we could resolve this? And it goes from there. You may later on talk face to face, but to approach face to face with something that's a problem or a confrontation would be completely inappropriate in that culture. Of course, in our culture and in the culture of the United States, it is absolutely appropriate for someone with an issue to go directly to the person that they have that they have a problem with, or that where there's a disagreement or a feeling of being hurt. That's completely appropriate in our culture, not so much in a Inupiaq culture. So in that context, the platinum rule would say, even though I would prefer, if somebody has a problem with me, that they come and address me directly, in that culture, it is better to go through a third party because that is more respectful of the people in that situation. I appreciated I appreciated what Christine and Samantha had to say about Christensen's idea that our goal is not simply to meet the bare minimum of being ethical, but to ask the question, have I helped others become better people? And both of you talked about how striving to help your children become better people is one of the most important things in life. And in the professional context, that translates into, as a leader, how are you helping the people that you lead become better people? Not just following the rules, not just doing their jobs, but how are you encouraging them and empowering them to become better people? That's what an ethical leader does. So thank you for that. I really appreciated too Stella's turn of phrase, just because I can doesn't mean I should. Our ability to do things, our ability to have influence over the world, our having power to change things is a good thing. It's good to be able to make a difference. It's good to be able to, in Stella's case, to be able to access this medical information and get it to where it needs to go. But just because you have the ability to do something doesn't mean that doing it is always the best thing. And it's discerning when to use our power, when to use our abilities is appropriate. That's what ethics, that's one of the main things that ethics is about. I also appreciated Sarah Lee and several others of you pointing out Christensen's insight that it is easier to do the right thing 100% of the time than it is to do the right thing 98% of the time. And I think that that's true. If we're always looking for the exception to the rule, there are going to be a lot of exceptions. If we're always looking for the way to get around a principle and say, when does this not apply because it might not be convenient in this particular instance, there's going to be more and more cases where we just disregard the principle. And as I pointed out in the forum, it's not only this idea that there is kind of a slippery slope of once you start making exceptions to one of your dearly held principles that more and more exceptions will pile up. I think that's true in most cases, but it's also the drain of making decisions every time you're confronted with a possible exception. You know, with Christensen talking about the playing sports on his religion's day of rest. Well, if you make that exception once, then every other week you got to decide, well, is this important enough to make an exception? Yes or no? Really? Oh, is it? What are the criteria to decide whether it's important enough to make an exception? And every time you're faced with a situation, you have to go through a process and use mental energy and make a decision. Whereas if it's, I don't play sports on my religion's day of rest, I don't do it, period. Don't have to think about it. No decision fatigue. And no bunches of time spent because it's just that simple. Just don't do it. And I think it's good to have some personal principles like that because it makes our lives easier and really makes us more successful and productive. So sorry about that phone ringing in the background, but perhaps that's my indication that time is up. And I look forward to your insights in the week 2 discussion forum.